you'll be lucky to find somebody who stays in an organization for 5 years or more. Otherwise, I think we have also accepted that with 2 to 3 years, you'll be good enough demonstration for us to see the experience the person has gained. And if the person has actually moved to a different industries, that will also give us a sense of the adaptability of the individual, because it's not easy to transition from one industry to another. You have to get into this discomfort zone from time to time and adapt. If we are looking for somebody who is adaptable, the person has to be very comfortable with change. And a red flag to me would be somebody who displays discomfort in ambiguity. For instance, asking a lot of questions around the roles and responsibilities, getting into a lot of details. And this may signal that the person may not be able to adapt because the roles do evolve over time and it's fairly quickly. So you can ask question and you can ask a lot of questions to show your inquisitiveness. You can actually ask the interviewer what will be your top of mind issues. Then that gives us an idea, okay, this person is actually interested in the thinking of the organization and the path ahead.
Welcome back to another episode of Wise and Shine. I'm your host, Dawn, budget babe and author of Take Back Control of Your Money, joined here with Alex today.
Yes, hi, this is Alex Low. People know me as the Growth Connector. Why? Because I connect people to the right solutions through my resources, networks, and ecosystem. And Dawn said that my initial introduction was too long, so now I shortened it. Thank you.
So today's episode is very timely. I think a lot of you have actually shared with us your feedback and your sentiments around the current job market, your worries and concerns. So to help you gain more clarity, we're doing this episode titled The Future of Talent, What Big Employers Really Look For. So if you're actually looking and thinking of applying to a company that is very future ready, very forward thinking, you'll probably be wondering, what exactly do the teams in there look out for and how can you position yourself to attract their attention? So with us here today, we have Sherlyn from Temasek. Sherlyn, would you like to introduce yourself to our audience?
Hi everyone, I'm Sherlyn, currently Head of Organization and People Team at Temasek. I've been with the firm for slightly over 14 years. And prior to that, I was also with another financial institution with an equivalent number of years. So that gives you an idea of how seasoned or how old I am.
Thanks, Sherlyn, for the introduction. Right, I think for some of you who might be wondering, what do you mean by big employers? Right, so a little bit of context here. Temasek isn't just one of Singapore's biggest employers, right? Maybe just share with us, what is the number of headcount that Temasek has?
I think big has different definition. From Temasek perspective, we have under 1,000 employees distributed into 13 different offices. And I guess the way you think, you frame big is in a context of the companies that Temasek owned in Singapore, which we call them Temasek portfolio companies. So collectively, we in Singapore hire about 160,000 workers. So in that sense, it's big.
That
but
is very
specifically
big,
for
yes.
Temasek, we are under 1,000.
Right.
Yeah, we're actually looking at with the portfolio companies.
So 160,000 employees with the portfolio companies. It is a global investment powerhouse influencing industries and talent trends worldwide. In an era where AI is transforming jobs and mid-career moves are becoming the norm, how is a leading organization like Temasek rethinking organizational development, leadership, as well as talent strategy? So this episode dives into the philosophy, practices, and future-oriented mindset behind building resilient, adaptable teams at scale. For professionals like you, this is a rare look inside how top-tier employers decide who gets hired, who gets developed, and future-proofed, and how they can build systems to support long-term growth at scale. I think there are a lot of questions that you probably have that Dawn and I are going to be asking Sherlyn, so stay tuned for this episode.
So Sherlyn, future ready is a very big buzzword. We see many organizations throw it around. They say we're looking for candidates who are future ready, who are equipped. But what exactly does that mean to you at Temasek?
Future readiness, in our view, we will be looking for candidates who are adaptable, who have navigated change and prepared for ambiguity and grow, as well as able to collaborate well with different people. So in the interview session, we often like to suss out stories of the candidate and form a perspective if the candidates have actually demonstrated the essence of what I have just shared.
Right. So sharing stories during the interview helps.
Correct.
But what about before they even get to the interview? We hear a lot of candidates telling us these days that they send out hundreds of resumes. I've never sent out hundreds in my time, man. So it is a lot harder these days. But I guess AI has also helped that. So as that helped, when you send out hundreds of resumes and you don't even get called for a single interview, it can be hard for someone to showcase and tell those stories. So how do you look at, or do you have any tips for people on how they should demonstrate that in their CV or resume first so that they actually land that spot at the interview to be able to share these stories?
When we look at the CV, we are looking at diversity of experiences, quite apart from the core role that they are responsible for, but we are also want to look at any other, I would say, the projects or initiatives that these people have also led to give us a sense of the additional responsibilities and experiences the candidate has gained in a course of work. And so that is one aspect. And in addition, we will also be looking at any other activities that the individuals would also be interested or has spent time, for example, doing community work, giving back to the society, will also give us a different perspectives of the individual. But when we look at the student's CV as an example, everybody comes with the same profile because, apart from grade, which is a key differentiator, we will be looking at the extracurricular activities of what these students have gone through to make a distinction of the candidates who are more open to having diverse experiences and gain different perspectives as they are involved in the different activities during their student life.
So with adaptability and diversity, does that come with job change? So if someone changes job every year or 2 years, this person is very adaptable, very diverse. Is that candidate a key contender for a position at Temasek?
We call this a non-linear career path. Okay, so I think it's a generational stuff. If you look at my generation and a kind of CV that we receive, generally people will stay longer in an organization. But this has already shifted. With the younger generation, they do not generally stay in a company for too long. You'll be lucky to find somebody who stays in an organization for 5 years or more. Otherwise, I think we have also accepted that with 2 to 3 years, it will be good enough demonstration for us to see the experience the person has gained. And if the person has actually moved to a different industries, that will also give us a sense of the adaptability of the individual because it's not easy to transition from one industry to another. You have to get into this discomfort zone from time to time and adapt.
But when we talk about shifting industries, and there's a lot of, the government is pushing us to consider mid-career switchers. When you look at these CVs, how important is it that the last role or the most recent 1 or 2 years is a role that is very similar to the one they're applying for?
When we look at the candidate's profile, we look at the portfolio of experiences the candidate has gained over the years. So the last experience to me is an important consideration, but it's not the sole consideration. What we're looking for is the holistic development as well as experiences that the candidates have earned or gained over the years.
Right. So aside from adaptability and the other qualities that you've mentioned, can you name one quality that you struggle to find? And why do you think these gap exists?
I would say at Temasek, we value 3 things, right? Curiosity, courage, and conviction. And these to us are essential attributes in order to adapt and thrive in this very uncertain and complex world. What is very difficult to find is how do we value quiet curiosity as much as those vocal questioning. I guess it's cultural or educational conditioning that makes certain people quieter, but doesn't mean that they have no perspectives. It's just they need more time to digest, process before they express their view. So it's very important for leaders in the rooms to avail a safe space for these people to express their views before the leaders shape the decision in the room. And For mid-career professionals, as an example, it's important for them to continue to harness this curiosity muscle in them. And because they come with experience and perspectives, they actually have the opportunity to ask very informed questions and stay curious about it. Always ask why, what ifs, what else, and challenge our own assumption.
So assuming the candidate is successful in being hired, the journey of the new employee, can you walk us through in terms of the talent development of each individual?
We have put in place an integrated system that addresses the multi-dimensional approach to talent development. So 3 things I will call out. First is our 4E learning framework, which comprises giving our employees a holistic experience that is on the job training experience. And we also avail a lot of programs, and we frame that as education. We also have exposure, where we encourage our employees to take on expanded scope by volunteering to participate in different activities that may be cross-functional in nature. And the whole idea is to give them these horizontal experiences. And last but not least is also the enrichment. We have put in place programs that avail the mentorship or coaching, or even the networking experiences that will be very valuable when we think about the wholesome learning experience. And in addition, we have our leadership competencies, which we put in place to that defines the leadership behaviors that we expect of leaders at different levels. And another framework outlines the mindset to help the people, or we expect the people to be able to adapt. And more importantly, to bring everything together is the 360-degree feedback. Because we are not just looking at what our employees can do, but how they do it. And that's an important consideration to make sure how they are being perceived and behave across various relationships and contexts. So we are not just looking at growing the core skills of our people, but also focusing on building what we call an adaptive capacity of the people, that they will be able to show in how they think, how they collaborate, and how they lead, especially during uncertainty.
I'm going to ask a hard question because, every organization tends to say that they have created these different systems and processes in place to onboard and train employees. But sometimes the ground reality is that when the new hire goes in, it's sometimes already war zone. It's chaotic. And their main manager is just trying to survive. So just shows them things that needs to get done, usually very junior level stuff that doesn't require as much teaching. And they don't have that mind space to really focus on thinking about their development. So I'm sure these situations have also happened at Temasek. How do you then try to deal with it so that these new employees don't get forgotten in the midst of business as usual?
That's a good question, and that is true. And so what we ensure, every new hires that we bring into the company, we have assigned them a buddy. And a buddy will help them to assimilate better into our culture. On the work aspect, the managers are also expected to come up with a program to make sure that the employees can accelerate the learning path. If this is not available, it's not going to be helpful to the manager, and there's no point hiring somebody into the team. And we also have our O&P business partner who will work very closely with our employees on the ground alongside the managers to make sure that these new hires who join us are taken care of, and there is actually a safe space for them to express their concerns to the O&P team. And more importantly, we have our heartbeat survey, which really feels the pulse of the business, and that is also an avenue for the employees to tell us if they feel engaged or they are not engaged or developed. I have to say that we are very happy to share our talent development and our learning opportunities that we avail to our people often score very highly in such survey.
Can I ask, earlier you talked about adaptability, right? And then you talked about how, what are the green flags that you're looking for with the stories that they tell to show that they are able to manage change and diversity. But what are certain red flags, right, of stories that you've heard that immediately you say, okay, this person is tooting his horn too much. I don't think he is as authentic and genuine as he is. Or maybe it is some certain values or stories that say, okay, I think this is not the right person culturally to fit into the organization?
I would say first, if we are looking for somebody who is adaptable, the person has to be very comfortable with change. And a red flag to me would be somebody who displays discomfort in ambiguity. For instance, asking a lot of questions around the roles and responsibilities, getting into a lot of details. And these may signal that the person may not be able to adapt because the roles do evolve over time and is fairly quickly. So that's one. Another one that I would say as a red flag is the learning stagnation. If the candidate is unable to express any new learnings or interests over the last 6 to 12 months, then that will also be something that I'll be concerned with.
Well, 6 to 12 months is a short time.
But how do you tell that during the interview? Because they will definitely say, oh, I'm very interested in learning a lot of things.
Then we will ask them, what have you learned?
So if they fluff their way through, how do you tell whether it's fluff versus it's real?
You cannot decide or make a decision based on this question alone. So it is a multitude of questions that make a collective decision on this individual. Another point I would say is if the candidate display any fixed mindset. For example, I'm not a technology person. I don't know. It's very difficult. We will be happy to listen to candidates who say, I'm not exposed to this, but I'll be very keen to learn if given more time, as an example.
So the way you communicate your lack of knowledge actually does make a difference during the interview.
Yes.
That's insightful. And I thought your first red flag was actually quite perspective. Like, it was very perceptive to me because sometimes, I mean, in the past, you would read tips on how to ace your interview. And one of those would be ask more questions about the role. So it communicates to the interviewer that you genuinely are very curious, you read a lot, and you're already imagining yourself in that role. That's why you're asking so much. But you said sometimes asking too much can also signal that
being
you
too
are,
calculative or
you're
something like
you
that.
might be too inflexible.
So you can ask question and you can ask a lot of questions to show your inquisitiveness. Is the question that you ask. You can actually ask the interviewer like, what will be your top of mind issues as an example. Then that gives us an idea, okay, this person is actually interested in more things than the role itself, but trying to understand the thinking of the organization and the path ahead.
So less about the ones that can be measured, less of processes and systems, but more in terms of the intangibles that can't be measured, such that communicates the organization's heartbeat and culture. That's a very good tip, guys. You should be writing this down.
And in this train of thought, right, would you hire specific for the role, or if that person does not fit the role hire and you feel that that candidate is a strong candidate, would you then actually reallocate that candidate to a potential role that might not be existing yet, but on a KIV or something of that sort? So hiring for the role or hiring for the person?
So it depends on the role that you are referring to and the seniority of the role requirement and what does success look like for the role. If you are looking at somebody who does not fulfill, I would say, or tick all the traditional boxes as an example, do we then consider these individuals for a different role in the future? We do from time to time because we are very hungry for talent. In fact, we actively scout for talent even though we may not necessarily have the roles today in our company. And it's to make sure that we know who these people are, and when the need arises, we know where to go to hunt for such individuals in the market.
Is it a key requirement for a candidate applying to Temasek to be finance trained, right? So for example, mid-career switch person like me, non-linear, very adaptable and very inclusive as well. Applying for a job, right? Would I even stand a chance because I don't have that many years of finance background? What would be that defining difference for this person to be successful?
Temasek is a global investment house. At the same time, we also have roles in addition to investment because we have corporate functions role that may not necessarily require the financial skills in those positions. But we have to recognize that every role at Temasek requires a certain level of domain expertise in order to do the job well. So for mid-career hire, if you're joining Temasek for an investment role, as an example, you're joining at at the level where the junior will be looking at you for advice on or uplift their competencies on a technical aspect. And so it may create certain dynamic challenges if you are unable to value add to the juniors in the room. Now, we also have had experience bringing in seasoned professionals from a totally different industries, in this case, maybe it's you, who were willing to start at a fresh, higher grade. And these people have brought in different perspectives that shaped their own talent development pathway, and they were able to accelerate that. So for mid-career professionals, if you are going to do a transition, first of all, you must be convinced that this is the right decision for you, because it's a lot of investments that you have to do. And if you have set your mind to do so, then you must be prepared that you're going to significantly accelerate your learning path.
I like that. Good. Means got chance for those of you mid-career, non-finance background.
Hey, I hope you're enjoying Wise and Shine so far. I'm your host Reggie, aka your Chief Financial Coconut, and for us to continue to do this show so that you become a tad bit wiser every week, you gotta like, share, subscribe, help us beat the algorithm. But even more importantly, if you can, comment in the comment section below. Let us know your thoughts and also some questions that you would love us to answer. Yep, now back to the show.
I want to ask about brand names. So how important is it that the candidates need to be from an established school that has a recognizable brand name?
Okay, I believe brand gets you noticed, but once you are in the room, it is the demonstrated experience as well as your aptitude and mindset that will make a difference in the room. I see candidates coming from a different background actually have developed a certain kind of grit and empathy that does not come from, I would say, doors that are automatically opened to them. Right. And so that is a very valuable attributes that we see. Now, we want to look at the curiosity of the individual and how has the individual adapted through challenges and uncertainties, and how the individual has navigated ambiguity. And this will give us a sense of this learning mindset of the individual and whether or not the individual is able to adapt quickly when we hire the person into the company.
It's very heartening to learn that the focus is not just on the branded schools, because I think a lot of youngsters nowadays, and there are naturally some families who may not be able to afford. Sometimes then the younger generation, they decide just to get a degree or just to get a qualification. They may go for sources that may not be as established. So it's heartening to hear from you that depending on how they position that in their CV and resume and the stories they show and demonstrate, they can still get through the first door.
But if, let's say, how much can we also understand how much of the shortlisting process is AI driven? Because we also want to understand how the AI shortlists, and if it is accredited branded schools that would be shortlisted and anything outside of that is immediately put in the do not want to look at list, then these people would not have an opportunity.
Yeah, so we need to be very careful how we use the AI tool because of the inherent biases, and there are also increasing regulatory, I would say, challenges out there that we have to make sure we don't trip when we deploy an AI to even do a recruitment. So we are exploring extending an AI tool to help us do a selection. And in our selection, we don't have a criteria of the school, but we are telling the AI is to show us the experiences that these people have gained that matches the role requirement of what we are looking for.
Okay, then that really puts out all that bias already.
Because at the end of the day, the human judgment has to come in evaluating the candidate. Because you must see the overall fit of the individual to the organization culture, quite apart from just looking at the CV and what the person can bring. But the values that the person has to be aligned to what we want to see at Temasek. Hopefully, with technological advancement, we can leverage the technology more and more and less of human to do this. Okay, how do you want to make yourself stand out is the candidate has to think about distinctive activities that you have done in your course of work or your student life that others may not necessarily have in order to get the attention of the recruiter. Otherwise, 10 students may look the same, completely the same from a CV perspective. And how do you help the employer to decide that you are the best, that you deserve an attention from the recruiter?
And on this topic of AI, have there been roles that have been not relevant anymore because of AI? And are there also roles that you currently are now looking for because of the use of technology and AI?
Yeah, can you name us maybe some examples of roles that have been made redundant because of AI and some new roles that have emerged because of it?
We haven't made any roles redundant because the way we see AI is to augment what we do today and give our people more time to do other things and upgrade themselves, and so that they can be more effective. So no roles have been made redundant. Okay,
So that
which
means
is
that
great.
you would rather train internally, upskill, than to hire externally to fill a particular gap that is required of that new skill.
Not necessarily. We will look at our internal candidates as a part of our talent pipeline. And at the same time, we will always be looking at external candidates to augment our existing capabilities. And this is the reason why from time to time, if you look at our corporate website, we do offer opportunities to lateral hires.
What about new roles? Have you created any new roles in the last 1 to 2 years because of AI?
We have not specifically created a new roles due to AI, but we have dedicated teams to focus on AI in the area of how can we uplift our enablement in our organization, how we can do investment differently, and how we can also help our portfolio companies. I would say that it's an evolved role.
Right. So it's not like you have a new role called AI trainer or AI data analyst, but it's more of your existing trainers or analysts in the teams are now being evolved to take on this AI component.
Correct. It's a core skill that we believe everybody needs to equip with.
And is there one concrete behavior or decision-making skill that leaders you feel need now that is part and parcel of any upskilling within the organization?
Leaders should now think that they are not the smartest in the room. Okay, with AI democratizing the knowledge and information and access, you'll be surprised that the most junior in the room may know more than us. So we must have this humility to even tell our people and ourselves that we don't know or we don't know enough.
What is one skill that you would bet on that will be relevant in the workplace 10, 20 years from now? You've already said adaptability, so that's a no-go. Is there any other skills, and you can only say one?
I think it's important for everyone to embrace a growth mindset. You may say, oh, it's the same as adaptability, because there's no other way other than embracing this growth mindset and wanting to learn more, new things to add into a repertoire of your skill sets and a tool set so that you can remain relevant for the longer term.
I'll be very frank though. So having been on this journey myself, what I've noticed is that among my peers, there are now two very distinct type of people. I'm in my 30s, right? And in your 20s, you're still experimenting, you're still learning. But in my 30s, when I look at the people around me, I see two very distinct profiles. One is a very scarcity mindset. And these people, they tend to take on they blame, they complain, and they make a lot of excuses. Unfortunately, some of these people are also my friends, and while I try to tell them sometimes friends don't take advice from friends as well. So it also becomes a very bitter pill to swallow, and I can only pray and wait for someone else to wake them up one day. Whereas on the other end of the spectrum, I have peers around me who might be younger, but their growth mindset is just amazing. Yesterday, I had lunch with one of my husband's friends, and he's only 29. But I was very impressed, and the first thing I said to him was, I think 15 minutes into our conversation, I was like, this is so rare, but you have such a growth mindset that I very seldom see in the late 20s people of your age range. And this is coming from me having just spoken to a few people in their late 30s and 40s who did not have this growth mindset. So what I've noticed then is that for the person to go from that scarcity mindset to the growth mindset, it takes a lot for them to make that jump. So how would you advise, having seen a lot of people in this domain, what would your advice be to people who are stuck here to get them over this line?
I think progressing from scarcity of mindset to abundance mindset, if I may call it, does take effort because it can be uncomfortable for anyone transitioning to that. But you'll be amazed that human beings, we are actually very adaptable and very curious. Okay, my father had ever told me before he passed on that human beings show a lot of adaptability. If you just look at our life journey as an example, we go through constant changes and evolution. And we live very well. We live through COVID. So if you think about that as an angle, and what makes people fear is when you are not part of the change. When you're part of the change, you will make sure you'll adapt and you will go through that. When you're not part of the change, this is where the fear comes in because there's a fear of losing agency and urgency. So the question is, how should you encourage or how can you encourage these people to be part of it? And to be part of it, they really have to confront their inertia and remove the inner friction. They actually have to self-help, okay? And the only way as friends or us as a HR practitioner is to continue to educate these people and hopefully they can have a bit more optimism and embrace a growth mindset.
If I can add to that, right? So I think that the key thing with this mindset reframe is about awareness. So if they don't have that awareness, it's quite impossible for you to move them.
I would add, aside from awareness, is the acknowledgement. Because sometimes their peers or the people around them can tell them. So you can argue they are aware. But whether they acknowledge and accept is a different thing. And without that, then it's very hard to move them.
And another thing also is these people with the scarcity mindset, it does not necessarily mean that they do not have a little bit of growth mindset. It's about uncovering it. So once they uncover it, 10, 20 years back, a particular incident, and if you're able to build on that brain memory or muscle memory, then they say, hey, yeah, actually, it is something that I've done before. I can continue to do it. And the more they do it, the more it is apparent in their life. And I think it's also about identifying where in the life or their life is that scarcity mindset more apparent. Sometimes it's at home, sometimes it's on themselves, sometimes it's in the community or at work. It's not the same in every aspect of each person's life.
During the interview, it's easier to show true stories for you as an interviewer to understand and see this growth mindset. But before they even get into the interview room, what are your practical tips for candidates to demonstrate that growth mindset on the CV?
I guess now with AI, it would be interesting if candidates can focus a bit on how they are leveraging AI to enhance their work processes or improve their productivity. And that will give us a sense of the new things that the candidates have also brought into their learning and giving us a sense of the adaptability.
And would that involve naming the AI tools or more of describing it?
Describing it.
So you're looking out for processes or experiences or projects that they have changed or automated in some ways by leveraging the tools rather than which tools they're using.
Correct.
Thank you, Sherlyn, for sharing all this. I think this was very insightful. We've come up with some ideas as well on how a CV that appeals to Temasek could look like, including no one really cares about your branded school. It could help to get you noticed. But if you put in more stories, demonstrate progress and grow, that could help someone stand out and get noticed by the people at Temasek.
Yes.
What is one last tip you would like to share with our audience for anyone who's interested to apply at Temasek and actually get noticed to ace that interview?
And for candidates who are interested to apply for a role at Temasek is to bring an angle of differentiations that you feel will be enough to get you attention. And if you were to present a CV that is the same like everyone else, then you may not necessarily get it noticed. So think about things that you have done in your life, in your career, or during your school life that you feel will make a distinctive difference, then I think, to me, that will be something that we will be looking at.
Thank you for sharing.
Thank
you for
you.
tuning in on this episode of Wise and Shine. We hope you've enjoyed all the insights that Sherlyn brought to the table. And I've learned a lot too. I think I might be going back to change my CV, although I'm not looking for a job, but you might as well draft it while it's still fresh in your mind, right? And if you haven't already done so, we hope that you will think about some of these additional tips and pointers that Sherlyn has brought out to see how that can make you even more attractive for the next interview or job application that you'll be sending out. My name is Dawn and this is Alex.
This is Alex, and if you're looking for more stories of the growth mindset, do follow my handle, Alex Low, the Growth Connector. If you're not already following www.thefinancialcoconut.com, please head on down to the website and leave your email address there so that when this episode or more episodes are launched, you will be informed.
Part of the questions from today's episode were also based on your feedback and comments on previous episodes. So let us know what you like about this. Like and share it with your friends. Tell us what we can do better, and we will see you on the next episode of Wise and Shine. Thank you. Bye.